Welcome back to Us Mint Mysteries, the home for America's rarest treasures hiding right inside your pocket change. Tonight, we're diving deep into the world of the Lincoln Wheat Pennies, and trust me, what you're about to see will blow your mind. Some of these ordinary-looking pennies have turned out to be worth more than luxury cars, even entire homes. So grab your magnifying glass, because one of these could be sitting in your old coin jar right now. And if you love uncovering the secrets of rare US coins, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because this journey is about to get unbelievable. The first coin on our list takes us back to the early 1940s, a time of war, rationing, and sacrifice. It's the 1942D Lincoln Wheat Penny, a coin that might look simple at first glance, but beneath its worn copper surface lies a story of America's resilience and a shocking collector value that will leave you speechless. Struck at the Denver Mint, this penny carries the small D mint mark just below the date, a mark that today could mean the difference between pocket change and a small fortune. Back in 1942, these coins were made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. But during those wartime years, the U.S. Mint was already experimenting with metal compositions for use in ammunition and military equipment. Because of that transition period, some 1942D pennies show subtle differences in color, tone, and even strike quality, little clues that can hint at a rare and valuable variant. Now, let's talk about the one you might be holding. In fine condition, this coin will show noticeable wear, with Lincoln's cheek and jawline slightly faded, but all major details still visible. You might see a soft brown patina that rich, age-tone collectors love. But what turns a simple 1942D penny into a treasure are the rare, minting errors that slipped past inspectors during the rush of wartime production. Keep an eye out for the 1942D over D error, where a second mint mark was accidentally struck over the first. Under magnification, you'll see a shadow-like doubling under the D. This small imperfection transforms an ordinary coin into something that can fetch anywhere from $4,500 in circulated condition to well over $45,000 in uncirculated grades. And that's not even the rarest part. There are documented examples of double die obverse errors where Lincoln's date and motto show a ghost-like doubling effect, pushing values past $125,000 at auction. Collectors go crazy for these pieces, not just because of their rarity, but because each one is a living artifact from America's past. Imagine it. A coin that might have once been used to buy a cup of coffee during World War II could now buy you a luxury car. That's the kind of mind-blowing contrast that keeps collectors searching. And here's the wildest twist: a few 1942D pennies have been found with planchet errors, struck on leftover experimental metal blanks intended for 1943 steel cents. These hybrid strikes are almost myth-like, and when authenticated, can command jaw-dropping prices upwards of $250,000 or more. That's right, a single cent, worth more than $250,000. So next time you're sorting through your change or going through your family's old coin box, don't overlook that dull brown penny with the 1942D date. Look closer, use a magnifying glass, check the mint mark, and examine the details. You might just uncover a piece of American history that could change your life. And if you're just as fascinated by the stories hiding behind these little copper coins, make sure to subscribe to Us Mint Mysteries, because the next coin on our list is even rarer, and its value will leave you absolutely stunned. Next up, we travel even deeper into history, over a century back to a coin that has witnessed the Roaring Twenties, the Great Depression, and the rise of modern America. The 1918 Lincoln Wheat Penny. It might look like an old, faded piece of copper now, but don't let that dark brown tone fool you. This little coin holds secrets that could send shivers down any collector's spine. Minted more than 100 years ago, the 1918 Wheat Penny was struck during a time when America was emerging from World War I. Most people don't realize how many of these coins have disappeared over the decades, melted down, lost, or simply worn beyond recognition. So when one survives today, even in poor or heavily circulated condition, it tells a story few coins can match. Now, if you're holding a 1918 penny with that deep chocolate brown color, You're looking at a coin that's lived through generations of hands, pockets, and history. The brown toning you see isn't damage, it's natural oxidation, the beautiful patina that forms on pure copper over time. In the collecting world, that color actually adds to the charm, showing the coin's authenticity and its age. The 1918 penny doesn't just have historical appeal, it's also home to one of the most mysterious and sought-after minting errors ever recorded. The 1918 double-die obverse. On these rare specimens, Lincoln's profile, the date, and even the inscriptions like, "In God We Trust," appear slightly doubled, creating a shadowed effect that you can spot under magnification. These coins are ultra-rare with some fetching values of $35,000 to $75,000, depending on condition. And in pristine, uncirculated grades, we're talking over $150,000 for a single cent. Now, let's talk about condition since your coin shows no fine details left. It likely grades around good or about good. Lincoln's features are worn smooth. The rims are faint, and Liberty might be partially visible. Even then, believe it or not, collectors will pay around $5 to $25 just for the history, and if there's any hint of an error, that price skyrockets instantly. But here's where it gets exciting. The 1918 pennies struck at the Denver D and San Francisco S mints can carry extra weight. The S mint mark, especially, means fewer were produced, only about 34 million, which might sound like a lot until you realize how many were lost or melted. A 1918S in even modest condition can reach 100-50, and with an error, easily over 50,000. Collectors often describe finding a 1918 penny as holding a small piece of living history. It's not just copper, it's a century of American life, captured in one coin. Think about it. This penny could have been used by a soldier returning from World War I, a factory worker buying bread during the 1920s, or a child saving it during the Great Depression. And today, it might just be the ticket to a collector's dream. Find.so. Don't overlook those dark brown coins in your change jars or old drawers. That dull, aged patina might be the sign of a hidden treasure, one that survived wars, recessions, and time itself. And remember, we're just getting started. If you're enjoying this journey through America's most valuable Lincoln Wheat Pennies, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because the next coin we're about to reveal carries a secret so shocking, even seasoned collectors can't believe it still exists. Now, let's jump forward to the 1930s, a decade defined by struggle, survival, and the enduring strength of the American spirit. The next treasure on our list is the 1934 Lincoln Wheat Penny, a coin born right in the middle of the Great Depression. For millions of Americans, every penny mattered, and this one, today, could matter far more than anyone back then could have imagined. At first glance, the 1934 penny doesn't look like much. It's small, simple, and worn, but that's what makes it so special. Struck in Philadelphia, this coin carries no mint mark under the date, but don't let that fool you. Some of the most stunning rarities of the 1930s came right out of the Philadelphia Mint. During these years, the U.S. Mint was still recovering from low production runs of the early Depression, and quality control wasn't always perfect. That's how several incredible mint errors and variations slipped through the cracks, errors that today are worth small fortunes. Your 1934 penny, in fine condition, shows moderate wear. Lincoln's hair and cheek have softened, but every major detail is still visible. The color might show warm shades of brown and copper red, a tone that serious collectors love because it tells the story of honest circulation. But if your coin hides one of those ultra-rare minting mistakes, you might just be sitting on a jackpot. Here's the one to watch for the 1934 double-die obverse. On these rare examples, the date, the word, Liberty, and even parts of, "In God We Trust," appear boldly doubled. The doubling is crisp and clear, especially under a magnifying glass, and when collectors find one, the excitement is electric. Even in circulated grades, this rare variety can bring in $2,000 to $8,000, while uncirculated examples can command an unbelievable $125,000 or more. Imagine that a penny that once bought a stick of gum now worth enough to buy a luxury SUV. But that's not the only reason this coin is valuable. The 1934 issue marked the beginning of America's economic recovery, so far fewer people saved coins that year. Because of that, even high-grade examples are harder to find. A sharp, red, uncirculated 1934 penny can easily hit $1,500 to $3,000, while special toning, such as a deep chocolate patina or rainbow hues, can push collectors into bidding wars that reach $10,000 or higher. Now, here's where the story gets even more fascinating. Some 1934 pennies have been discovered struck on foreign planchets, leftover blanks intended for coins of other countries. These rare hybrid strikes are the holy grail for die variety hunters, and documented examples have sold for over $200,000 at auction. That's right, 1 cent, worth more than a house, simply because of a minting quirk that shouldn't have happened. When you hold a 1934 Lincoln penny, you're holding a relic of American perseverance. Think about the stories this coin could tell. Maybe it passed through the hands of a factory worker in Detroit, a farmer in Kansas, or a shopkeeper trying to make ends meet during the toughest years in U.S. history. Every scratch and mark adds to its character, proof that it survived when the country itself was struggling to survive. So next time you see a worn, copper-colored penny from 1934, don't ignore it. Grab your magnifying glass, look closely at that date, and check for doubling. You might just uncover one of the greatest Depression-era treasures ever minted. Our next coin takes us to the dawn of a new decade, a time of hope, uncertainty, and change. The 1940 Lincoln Wheat Penny, struck at the San Francisco Mint. This coin carries a quiet mystery that's fascinated collectors for decades. It's small, copper, and often overlooked. But under the right conditions, this modest penny could be worth thousands. Picture it, 1940. The world was standing on the edge of World War II. But in the U.S., the economy was recovering from the Great Depression. The San Francisco Mint was producing some of the most beautifully struck wheat pennies of the era, and the 1940 was no exception. Look closely just below the date, and you'll see that small S mint mark, a tiny letter that holds enormous power in the world of coin collecting. In fine condition, your 1940 penny will show moderate wear. Lincoln's cheek and jawline are slightly flattened, but all major details, the date, motto, and lettering remain clear. The fields of the coin have a soft brown glow, showing the character of age without losing its integrity. But here's the twist. This isn't just about condition. Some 1940 wheat pennies hide extraordinary secrets, minting errors so rare that when discovered, they've sold for jaw-dropping prices. The most famous of them all is the 1940 repunched mint mark, where the S was struck more than once, leaving behind a shadowy double impression. Under magnification, you'll notice the second S peeking out slightly above or below the first. This tiny imperfection turns an ordinary penny into a collector's dream, fetching anywhere from $500 in circulated grades to $15,000 or more in mint state condition. But it gets even better. A handful of 1940 Lincoln cents were found with double die reverses, where the lettering on the reverse side, especially 1 cent, and United States of America, shows faint doubling. These are ultra rare and can command $25,000 to $60,000, depending on condition. And for those lucky enough to find one with strong doubling and bright luster, values can climb past an unbelievable $200,000. Imagine finding one of those, a single penny, tucked away in a jar or an old coin album, suddenly revealed to be worth more than a sports car. It's the kind of discovery every collector dreams of. Even a regular 1940 penny, without any error, can bring respectable prices if well preserved. A fine condition coin like yours might fetch $1 to $5, but in brilliant red and circulated condition, those same coins often reach $100 to $50, especially when the color is vivid and the strike is sharp. The reason? San Francisco Mint coins of this era are known for their exceptional detail, and serious collectors pay a premium for quality. The history behind the 1940 adds another layer of magic. As America stood at the doorstep of war, every coin minted carried with it a quiet reminder of resilience and change. These pennies circulated through factories, gas stations, and family stores. Real pieces of life during a defining moment in U.S. history. So if you've got a 1940s wheat penny sitting in your collection, don't brush it aside. Check that mint mark carefully. Look for doubling. Examine the luster and tone. You might be staring at a treasure that's been hiding in plain sight for 85 years. Our next treasure takes us to the mid-1950s, an age of booming industry, new cars, and the golden era of American optimism. The 19560 Lincoln Wheat Penny may seem like a simple copper coin you'd find rattling in an old drawer, but don't be fooled. Beneath its humble surface lies a potential fortune that stunned even seasoned collectors. Minted at the Denver Mint, this coin bears the small D mint mark just below the date, a tiny detail that separates it from the Philadelphia issue. The Denver Mint produced an enormous number of these coins, over 1.1 billion in total. That's right, billions. So how could something so common possibly be worth thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars? The answer lies in a few rare and incredible mistakes made during the minting process. Let's start with your coin. In fine condition, the 1956D shows moderate wear. Lincoln's face is still recognizable, though his hair and cheekbones have softened from circulation. The color is likely a warm brown or reddish tone, with that smooth, natural patina collectors love. It's a coin that's clearly lived a long life, perhaps spent in candy shops, gas stations, or tucked away in a child's piggy bank during the 1950s. But here's where things take a shocking turn. The 1956D is home to one of the most famous and valuable varieties in all of wheat penny history, the 1956D over D repunched mint mark. During production, a second D was accidentally stamped over the first, slightly offset. When viewed under magnification, the doubling is crisp, often visible on the lower right of the mint mark. This rare variety can sell for $1,000 to $3,000 in circulated grades, and when found in mint state red, prices can explode to $15,000 or even $25,000. But wait, it gets even wilder. A small handful of 1956D pennies show extreme die breaks and cut errors, where parts of the die cracked during striking, leaving raised blobs of metal on the coin. These dramatic errors are incredibly scarce and can command staggering prices, sometimes $50,000 to $100,000 at major auctions. One particular example with a massive die break across Lincoln's face sold for nearly $120,000, all because of a freak minting accident that should never have happened. Collectors love the 1956D not just for its value, potential, but for what it represents: the end of an era. This was one of the final years of the wheat penny design before the Lincoln Memorial Reverse began in 1959. It marks the close of a 50-year legacy that started in 1909, making every late-date wheat penny a nostalgic farewell to America's most iconic cent, even without errors. High-grade examples of the 1956D remain in strong demand. A full red, uncirculated piece, glowing with that fiery copper brilliance, can easily fetch $100 to $300, and if it's graded Ms. 67 or higher, the price can rocket to $1,500 or more. Proof that condition truly matters in the world of coin collecting. So if you've got a 1956D penny sitting in a jar or tucked inside an old folder, don't dismiss it just because it's common. Take a closer look at that tiny D, get out a magnifying glass and check for that doubling or any odd raised metal around the mint mark. Because in a sea of billions, that one mistake could turn your penny into a priceless piece of American history. Our next coin takes us into the heart of America's wartime years, a year when the world stood on the edge of chaos, and every coin that left the mint carried the weight of history. The 1941 Lincoln Wheat Penny, a simple, everyday coin to most people, but to collectors, it can be a silent time capsule, and in the right condition, a shocking hidden treasure worth thousands. Minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, In San Francisco, the 1941 penny marks the final chapter before the U.S. Mint shifted its materials for the war effort. By 1943, pennies would be made of steel, not copper, but in 1941, copper was still king. 95% pure, with that warm, golden red glow that collectors love. Now, your coin, an extra fine example, tells a special story. Lincoln's cheekbone, hair curls, and coat are all sharply visible, with only slight wear on the high points. The wheat stalks on the reverse are strong and detailed, a sign that this coin survived decades without heavy circulation. Coins in this condition are rare survivors, especially from an era when people rarely thought to save their pocket change. But what makes the 1941 penny truly fascinating are the hidden minting errors that slipped into circulation, errors that today can turn an ordinary cent into a collector's dream. Among the most sought after is the 1941 double die obverse, where Lincoln's profile, the date, and the words, "In God We Trust," show distinct doubling. Under magnification, you can see the shadow effect, as if two images were stamped slightly apart. These rare varieties can fetch $3,000 to $15,000, even in circulated grades, and pristine uncirculated examples have sold for over $100,000. But that's not all. There's another wild anomaly: a small number of 1941 pennies struck on foreign planchets, blanks intended for other countries' coins. These oddities weigh slightly less than normal and may sound different when dropped on a table. One of these rare off-metal strikes was discovered on a blank intended for a 1942 dated dime, and when authenticated, it sold for nearly $150,000, 1 cent, worth more than a house, all because of a minting accident that should never have happened. Even regular 1941 pennies have impressive value in high grades. A sharp, bright red uncirculated example can bring $200 to $400. While top-graded specimens with that fiery copper glow have crossed $2,000 to $3,000 at major auctions. Collectors adore the 1941 for its beauty, history, and its place in the timeline of America's wartime coinage. Think about it. This coin might have passed through the hands of soldiers, factory workers, or families saving for an uncertain future. It could have been used to buy a newspaper the day Pearl Harbor was attacked, or traded in a store just before the U.S. entered the war. Every mark and scratch on its surface carries a whisper of that history, and the extra fine condition makes your coin even more remarkable. It's a survivor, carefully kept, lightly used, and full of character. The details still shine, the lettering stands proud, and that soft copper tone feels alive under the light. So, if you ever come across a 1941 Lincoln Wheat Penny, don't just toss it aside. Examine it carefully. Look for doubling on the date, check for that bold wheat reverse, and pay attention to its color and weight. What might look like a common penny could be hiding a six-figure secret. Our next coin takes us back to 1946, a year of relief, recovery, and rebirth in America. World War II had just ended. Soldiers were coming home, and the U.S. Mint was returning to normal copper production after years of wartime metal shortages. And right in the middle of that transition came the 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny, a coin that marked both an end and a new beginning. Now, the penny you're looking at has no mint mark, meaning it was struck in Philadelphia, the oldest and most storied U.S. mint. At first glance, it might seem plain. The surface is dark, with that deep blackish tone that comes from decades of oxidation. But don't be fooled, that black shade isn't damage. It's the coin's natural aging process, the result of copper reacting with air, moisture, and time. To collectors, this kind of patina can add real character, and in some cases, value, because it shows the coin's long journey through history. Your coin, in fine condition, shows Lincoln's face and coat details still clear. With light wear across the cheek and hair, the lettering remains readable, and the wheat stalks on the reverse are still sharp enough to stand out. This coin has been handled and spent, yet somehow survived nearly 80 years of circulation. That alone makes it a small miracle. But what makes the 1946 penny so fascinating are the rare mistakes that slipped through the mint that year. You see, after the war, The US Mint stopped making steel cents and returned to a copper alloy. However, a few leftover steel planchets from 1943 somehow remained in the machinery and were accidentally struck with 1946 dies. Those error coins 1946 cents made of steel instead of copper are unbelievably rare. If you ever find one that sticks to a magnet, you're holding a coin worth a fortune. How much? Try $100,000 to $250,000, depending on condition. Just imagine a single penny, black in tone, alec in feel, worth more than most people's yearly income. That's the kind of shock value this hobby delivers. Even without such extreme errors, other 1946 varieties are worth looking for. Some show repunched mint marks on Denver and San Francisco issues, or minor die cracks across Lincoln's shoulder, or the reverse lettering. Collectors pay handsomely for clean examples, with repunched S mint marks bringing $1,000 to $5,000, and dramatic die breaks exceeding $10,000 for your Philadelphia coin. High-grade examples with rich red luster are still highly prized. An uncirculated red 1946 can bring $150 to $300, while top-graded Ms. 67 examples have fetched $1,200 or more. That's incredible for a coin that cost just 1 cent nearly 8 decades ago. But beyond value, the 1946 wheat penny carries deep emotional significance. It represents America's first steps after victory when rationing ended, hope returned, and people finally began rebuilding their lives. These coins jingled in the pockets of returning soldiers, factory workers, and families buying their first post-war homes. Every mark, every shade, every dark spot, tells a piece of that story. So, if you've got a 1946 penny that's turned dark or black over the years, don't clean it. That natural tone is its fingerprint, proof of its journey through time. Take a closer look, check its weight, and see if it's copper or steel, because you just might be holding one of the rarest survivors of post-war America, a coin that whispers history and could be worth far more than you'd ever expect. The next coin on our list isn't just rare, it's iconic. The 1955 Lincoln Wheat Penny, a small piece of copper that changed the entire world of coin collecting forever. For most collectors, this is the dream penny, the one that turns ordinary people into treasure hunters, the one that made headlines across America, and the one that still sends chills down the spine of anyone lucky enough to see it in person. At first glance, your 1955 penny might look perfectly ordinary. It's brown, lightly worn, and carries that familiar face of Abraham Lincoln. In fine condition, the high points of the design are worn smooth, but all major details are clear. The wheat ears on the reverse still show good definition, and the color carries that warm, antique tone that only true copper can hold. But here's where things get interesting, because not all 1955 pennies are created equal. In 1955, something extraordinary happened at the Philadelphia Mint, something that no one noticed until it was far too late. During production, one of the dies used to strike the pennies became misaligned. It struck slightly off from the normal position, creating what would become one of the most famous minting errors in U.S. history, the 1955 double die obverse. When you look at this coin, you can't miss it. The date, the word, liberty, and even, in God we trust, appear doubled so dramatically, it looks like two coins overlapping. It's bold, it's clear, and it's unmistakable, and it slipped right through the mint's inspection process. Thousands were released into circulation, mixed in with cigarette change, grocery store tills, and pocketfuls of pennies that no one thought twice about. By the time collectors discovered it, the damage was done, and a legend was born. The 1955 double die instantly became one of the most famous error coins in the world. Even today, it remains the most recognized and sought-after Lincoln Wheat Penny ever struck. Now, here's where it gets truly shocking. A regular 1955 penny, in fine condition, might be worth around 25 to 50 cents, depending on color and wear. But if it's one of those rare double die obverse coins, even in heavily circulated condition, you're looking at $3,000 to $5,000. Move up to an uncirculated example, and the value skyrockets past $25,000, $50,000, and in pristine red gem condition, some have sold for over $275,000. That's right, a single penny, worth more than a Ferrari, all because of a minting mistake that happened nearly 70 years ago. Collectors still talk about the 1955 double die as the coin that started a revolution. It made ordinary people start checking their pocket change. Newspapers across the country ran stories. Even tobacco companies accidentally gave away these pennies as change from vending machines. And today, when one surfaces at auction, it draws global attention, even if your 1955 penny doesn't show. Doubling, it's still part of that legendary year, the year that put the Lincoln cent in the spotlight forever. In fine condition, a normal 1955 penny carries modest value, but it's a perfect reminder of how quickly a simple mistake can become history. So if you're ever lucky enough to find a 1955 wheat penny, don't blink. Hold it to the light, and look closely at the date and lettering. If you see that eerie doubling, congratulations, you've found one of the greatest treasures in American numismatics. This isn't just a coin. It's a story of error, luck, and discovery. It's the penny that made America fall in love with coin collecting. And who knows, yours could be the next one that turns up after decades in hiding. Now, let's turn our attention to a coin that often slips under the radar, but hides a story richer than most people realize: the 1950 Lincoln Wheat Penny. At first glance, it looks simple enough. A small brown cent, carrying the same humble face of Abraham Lincoln that's graced our coins for generations. But look closer. Maybe yours has a few scratches, some years of wear, maybe even that dull brown tone that comes with age. But beneath those marks is history, a time capsule from the early 1950s when the United States was just finding its post-war rhythm again. The 1950 Lincoln Wheat Penny was struck at 3 mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. And while most of these coins entered circulation by the millions, what many people don't realize is that this year's production marked the beginning of an important transition, a shift from wartime metal shortages back to high-quality copper alloy. The U.S. Mint had finally returned to stability, and these pennies carried that pride in every strike. Now, a fine condition 1950 penny, even with light scratches, tells a story. The rim may be worn smooth, Lincoln's hair and coat show signs of use, but the details remain crisp enough to honor the design Victor David Brenner created decades earlier. The wheat stalks on the back still curve proudly around the words 1 cent, like a frame around a piece of history. But here's where the story deepens. Some 1950 pennies, especially those struck in Philadelphia, show fascinating die cracks and striking anomalies. Small, raised lines or distortions caused by aging mint dies. These tiny imperfections can sometimes boost value significantly for collectors who know what to look for. There are even rare instances of 1950 pennies with repunched mint marks, RPMs, on Denver minted coins where the D was struck twice, slightly off-center. Under magnification, that small doubling can transform a 25-cent coin into one worth hundreds, even thousands, depending on condition. So, what about value? A standard 1950 wheat penny in fine condition, even with a few scratches, might fetch $0.15 to $0.5 to most casual buyers. But the story doesn't end there, because in uncirculated red-brown condition, these coins can leap to $25 to $75 easily. Move into brilliant red mint state grades, and you're looking at $300 to $600. And for those ultra-rare RPM or error varieties, some have fetched $5,000 to $12,000 at high-end auctions. Imagine that: a coin that once bought a stick of gum, commanding the price of a used car, all thanks to a microscopic minting twist. And that's what makes this coin special. Even a scratched 1950 penny might carry something the naked eye can't see: a doubled mint mark, a small die break, or a rare strike through from a piece of debris caught in the minting process. Every scar, every mark tells part of its 75-year journey. Collectors often say that coins like this are honest survivors. They've seen life. They've been in circulation, passed through countless hand soldiers, shopkeepers, children buying candy in 1950s America. Every scratch is a fingerprint of history, and that's what gives it soul. So, before you dismiss that 1950 penny for its scratches, take one more look. Use a magnifying glass, tilt it under the light, and check the mint mark carefully, because one tiny detail could turn that worn piece of copper into a small fortune. And the best part, most people don't even know to look. That's what makes coin collecting so thrilling. The secrets are hiding in plain sight. So, if you've got a handful of old wheat pennies sitting somewhere, don't overlook them, especially from 1950. You might just be holding the next big discovery. Sometimes, the most unassuming coins hold the biggest surprises. The 1948's Lincoln Wheat Penny might not look like much at first. A dark brown cent, lightly worn, maybe tucked away in an old coffee can or a dusty coin jar. But this little copper piece carries the spirit of post-war America. And for collectors, it's a symbol of endurance, subtle rarity, and the thrill of hidden worth. In 1948, the United States was entering a new era. The war was over, prosperity was growing, and the U.S. Mint was once again producing billions of coins for a booming economy. But down in San Francisco, something special was happening. The S mint mark beneath the date signified precision, care, and craftsmanship that made these coins stand out among the rest. When you hold a 1948's penny in fine condition, the first thing you notice is its deep brown color, that warm, chocolate tone that comes only from genuine copper aging naturally over decades. Lincoln's face is slightly worn, but his features are still strong and visible. The wheat stalks on the back are flattened, but still recognizable, and the words 1 cent remain bold and proud. This is a coin that has lived a life used in stores, passed between generations, and now rediscovered by collectors who know its true story. But here's where things get intriguing. The 1948's might seem common, yet certain striking characteristics make it a sleeper coin for sharp-eyed collectors. During this year, minor die wear and misalignment at the San Francisco Mint led to several rare varieties, including subtle repunched mint marks, RPMs, and even faint die cracks that can increase its value dramatically. If you look closely under a magnifying glass and see what appears to be a shadow, a second, slightly offset mint mark, that's a repunched mint mark, and collectors go crazy for those. Now, let's talk about what everyone wants to know: the value. A normal 1948's wheat penny in fine condition like yours is worth around 20 to 40 cents. A modest sum, but that's only where the story begins. Step up to extremely fine or about uncirculated, and you're looking at $3 to $7. In brilliant red mint state condition, prices jump sharply: $50, $150, even $300 for premium examples. But if you have one of those rare repunched S/S mint marks or die crack errors in a clean, lustrous state, the value can leap into the thousands, with some auction results hitting $8,000 to $15,000. For gem specimens, just imagine a penny that once slipped through the fingers of a 1940 shop clerk could now pay for a family vacation or even a small car. And the irony? Most people wouldn't even give it a second look. What makes the 1948's so captivating isn't just its age or condition, it's the story it tells. Each scratch, each shade of brown, each soft curve in the wheat design reflects more than 75 years of American history. These coins circulated during the dawn of television, the rise of rock and roll, and the golden age of the American dream. That's why collectors love it, not because it's flashy, but because it's authentic. It's a survivor. And sometimes, the ones that look the most ordinary hide the rarest secrets. So, before you dismiss a brown 1948's wheat penny, take another look. Check under good light, and search for that subtle doubled mint mark or tiny die line. You never know, your old penny might just be the one that turns a small piece of history into a small fortune. Our next coin takes us straight back to 1941, a year that changed the world. And a year that left behind one of the most collectible wheat pennies ever struck. The 1941 Lincoln cent. At first glance, it might seem like just another copper penny, brown from age, lightly worn from years of use. but still carrying that unmistakable dignity of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse. Look closely at the date, and right below it, you'll spot that small D mint mark, the mark of the Denver Mint. And that's where the story begins. In 1941, as the winds of World War II swept across the globe, the U.S. Mint was working overtime to keep up with the demand for coinage. The Denver facility struck more than 128 million Lincoln cents that year, an enormous number. But despite the high mintage, not all 1941D pennies are created equal. Your 1941D penny in fine condition tells a story all its own. The rim shows even wear, Lincoln's cheek and jaw are smooth, but his outline is clear and sharp. The wheat ears on the reverse still curve gracefully, though their tips are faint. The color, that rich, mellow brown, gives it the kind of aged character collectors love. But what really makes this year fascinating is the number of small but dramatic minting anomalies that came out of Denver's presses. That's right, 1941D is known for its variety of repunched mint marks, where the D was accidentally punched twice into the die. Sometimes the second D sits just above, below, or slightly to the side of the first. Tiny details that can make all the difference. In a normal fine condition, your 1941D penny might be worth around 25 to 40 cents. But if that RPM variety is present, the price can instantly jump to $50, $100, even $300, depending on visibility and preservation. Now, here's where it gets even more thrilling. Collectors have also identified rare 1941D double die obverse examples where the lettering on Liberty, or In God We Trust, shows subtle doubling. These coins are extremely hard to find, and when one turns up in mint state red condition, they've been known to sell for $10,000, $25,000, and in one remarkable case, over $40,000 at auction, all from a single cent struck 84 years ago. The 1941D isn't just a coin, it's a survivor from the edge of history. Imagine the journey. This penny may have passed through the hands of soldiers buying coffee at train stations, factory workers cashing their first wartime paychecks, or families saving every cent they could as the nation prepared for what lay ahead. Each tiny scratch is a whisper from that moment in time. That's the beauty of collecting coins like this. You're not just holding metal, you're holding memory. And while the 1941D might seem common, the truth is, its value depends entirely on condition, color, and those rare hidden details that only reveal themselves under close inspection. A brilliant red mint state example, untouched and full of original luster, can fetch $500 to $1,200 and higher for RPM or double die errors. Even those found in fine or very fine condition carry real collector appeal because of the history and the search factor. So next time you come across a 1941D wheat penny, don't underestimate it. Hold it up to the light. Look carefully at the mint mark. Could that be a repunched D? Examine the lettering for doubling. You might be staring at a hidden gem worth thousands. And that's the magic of coin collecting. You never know when the most ordinary looking cent could turn into a jaw-dropping discovery. Now, let's move on to a coin that might just be sitting quietly in your collection, the 1950 Lincoln Wheat Penny. But don't let its simple copper glow fool you. This coin, especially in extra fine condition, carries the kind of quiet power that makes collectors stop and stare at first glance. It looks beautifully preserved. The familiar face of Abraham Lincoln still sharp and detailed. His coat and bow tie cleanly defined, and that classic wheat design on the reverse, bold and distinct. The edges are smooth but not worn down, and the color, whether a warm brown or light red brown, still reflects its 1950s origin. This is a coin that's lived through decades but still carries the pride of its minting year. The year 1950 marked a turning point in U.S. coinage. America was just stepping out of the shadow of war and into a new era of optimism. The U.S. Mint, operating at full capacity, struck Lincoln cents in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, millions upon millions of them. Yet even in that massive production, certain pieces stood apart. The Denver Mint's D coins and the San Francisco's issues sometimes revealed slight variations in the striking process, leading to a handful of fascinating and valuable mint errors. Collectors have identified repunched mint marks RPMs on both 1950D and 1950S pennies. These are coins where the tiny mint mark was punched more than once into the die, a small, almost invisible error that today commands huge premiums. There are also minor die cracks, die chips, and even off-center strikes known for this year. If you happen to spot one, the jump in value is unbelievable. Now, let's talk about worth, because that's where the wow moment really begins. A 1950 wheat penny in extra fine condition like yours is already a collectible, worth around $1 to $2 to most dealers. But move it up to uncirculated red-brown condition, and it quickly rises to $25 to $60. In brilliant red mint state grades, the price jumps again $200 to $400 or more depending on the mint mark. But that's just the surface. When you enter the world of rare varieties, it gets wild. A 1950S repunched mint mark in high-grade red condition can bring $1,000 to $5,000. And some pristine examples of the doubled die varieties have shocked collectors with hammer prices over $10,000. Imagine holding a coin that once bought a cup of coffee now worth more than a Rolex, all because of a tiny imperfection at the mint, and beyond value. The beauty of this coin is its craftsmanship. Victor David Brenner's design, first introduced in 1909, was still being honored for decades later, and the 1950 strikes are some of the sharpest and most balanced of the post-war era. Under magnification, you can see the fine texture of Lincoln's beard, the subtle curve of his jawline, and even the delicate separation between the wheat stalks on the reverse. That's what makes your extra fine 1950 penny so captivating. It bridges two worlds, the old and the new, the wartime past and the booming future of mid-century America. It's not just a coin, it's a reflection of hope, resilience, and the quiet beauty of American craftsmanship. Collectors love to call coins like this sleepers, pieces that haven't yet exploded in value, but hold incredible potential. And the 1950 Lincoln Wheat Penny fits that definition perfectly. So the next time you come across one, don't pass it up. Hold it close, study it under good light, and check for that mint mark, because one tiny detail could transform that penny into a collector's dream. Now, let's move to one of the most talked about coins in the entire Lincoln Wheat Penny series, the 1944-D.T first. It might look like a simple, worn-out penny, no luster, darkened with age, maybe even a bit dull around the edges. But don't be fooled, this is one of those coins where looks can deceive, because the year 1944 holds a story unlike any other in American numismatic history. The world was at war. Every factory in the United States, including the U.S. Mint, was contributing to the war effort. Just a year earlier, in 1943, the Mint made a historic decision to strike pennies not from copper, but from steel coated in zinc, because copper was desperately needed for ammunition and military supplies. Those steel cents became famous overnight. But in 1944, everything changed again. The war was still raging, but copper returned to the Mint's furnaces. The 1944 Lincoln Wheat Pennies were once again made from 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin, and struck by the millions at all three mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Yet, among these billions of new copper cents, a tiny handful of extraordinary mistakes slipped through. The Denver Mint. A few leftover steel planchets from 1943 accidentally got mixed into the 1944 batch, and those rare 1944D steel pennies would go on to become some of the most valuable error coins ever discovered. Now, your 1944D penny, though well worn and lacking fine detail, still carries immense historical significance. Even in poor or no fine condition, it's a piece of the great wartime transition when the Mint was switching metals, reusing planchets, and struggling to meet America's coinage needs in the middle of chaos. If your coin is copper, which most are, its collector value in low condition sits around 10 to 25 cents. But if, by some stroke of luck, your 1944D sticks to a magnet that's right, a simple magnet, you could be holding one of the holy grails of coin collecting, the 1944D steel penny. Only a handful have ever been found, and they've sold for staggering prices from $100,000 to over $450,000, depending on condition. One example in near mint state shocked the numismatic world when it sold for nearly $1.2 million at auction. Think about that, a coin people might overlook as junk, turning out to be worth more than a house. That's why 1944D is so special. It represents one of those rare times when a small minting oversight created something truly priceless. Even regular 1944D copper cents can have interesting varieties, including repunched mint marks RPMs, where the D was struck twice. Some show subtle doubling on "In God We Trust" or "Liberty," and these small details can push values into the hundreds or even thousands for collectors chasing die varieties. The 1944D may not gleam anymore. Yours may be worn, scratched, or dark, but that's part of its story. Imagine how many hands it's passed through. Soldiers returning home from the front lines, families rationing food, children saving pennies in little jars labeled "Victory." Each mark on that coin is a memory of an America rebuilding itself, and that's the true beauty of coins like this. They're not just metal. They're time machines. So the next time you see a 1944D penny, even if it looks plain or worn, take a second look. Hold a magnet near it. You never know. That single moment could change your life forever. Now, let's move to one of the most talked about coins in the entire Lincoln Wheat Penny series, the 1944-D.T first. It might look like a simple, worn-out penny. No luster, darkened with age, maybe even a bit dull around the edges. But don't be fooled, this is one of those coins where looks can deceive, because the year 1944 holds a story unlike any other in American numismatic history. The world was at war. Every factory in the United States, including the U.S. Mint, was contributing to the war effort. Just a year earlier, in 1943, the Mint made a historic decision to strike pennies not from copper, but from steel coated in zinc, because copper was desperately needed for ammunition and military supplies. Those steel cents became famous overnight. But in 1944, everything changed again. The war was still raging, but copper returned to the Mint's furnaces. The 1944 Lincoln Wheat Pennies were once again made from 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin, and struck by the millions at all three mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Yet, among these billions of new copper cents, a tiny handful of extraordinary mistakes slipped through. The Denver Mint. A few leftover steel planchets from 1943 accidentally got mixed into the 1944 batch, and those rare 1944D steel pennies would go on to become some of the most valuable error coins ever discovered. Now, your 1944D penny, though well worn and lacking fine detail, still carries immense historical significance. Even in poor or no fine condition, it's a piece of the great wartime transition when the Mint was switching metals, reusing planchets, and struggling to meet America's coinage needs in the middle of chaos. If your coin is copper, which most are, its collector value in low condition sits around 10 to 25 cents. But if, by some stroke of luck, your 1944D sticks to a magnet that's right, a simple magnet, you could be holding one of the holy grails of coin collecting, the 1944D steel penny. Only a handful have ever been found, and they've sold for staggering prices from $100,000 to over $450,000, depending on condition. One example in near mint state shocked the numismatic world when it sold for nearly $1.2 million at auction. Think about that, a coin people might overlook as junk, turning out to be worth more than a house. That's why 1944D is so special. It represents one of those rare times when a small minting oversight created something truly priceless. Even regular 1944D copper cents can have interesting varieties, including repunched mint marks RPMs, where the D was struck twice. Some show subtle doubling on "In God We Trust" or "Liberty," And these small details can push values into the hundreds or even thousands for collectors chasing die varieties. The 1944D may not gleam anymore. Yours may be worn, scratched, or dark, but that's part of its story. Imagine how many hands it's passed through. Soldiers returning home from the front lines, families rationing food, children saving pennies in little jars labeled "Victory." Each mark on that coin is a memory of an America rebuilding itself, and that's the true beauty of coins like this. They're not just metal. They're time machines. So the next time you see a 1944D penny, even if it looks plain or worn, take a second look. Hold a magnet near it. You never know. That single moment could change your life forever. Next up, we travel to the final chapter of the classic wheat penny era, the year 1957, and one of its proud creations, the 1957D Lincoln Wheat Cent. At first glance, your coin looks clean, bright, and beautifully struck. In extra fine condition, the details on Lincoln's portrait are sharp and confident, his coat fold still well defined, the cheek and jawline bold, and the wheat ears on the reverse crisp and full. There's just a hint of gentle wear that tells you it's lived a life, maybe in circulation, maybe tucked away in a drawer, but it's still a stunner. By 1957, America was booming. The war was long over. The country was in its golden age, and coin collecting itself was becoming one of the nation's favorite hobbies. The U.S. Mint in Denver struck over 1 billion wheat pennies that year, 1,051,342,000 to be exact, and yet, even among those staggering numbers, hidden rarities still slipped through. That small D below the date marks the Denver Mint, a facility known for speed, precision, and volume. But like any mass production line, tiny imperfections can create treasures. And 1957D is no exception. Collectors have identified several fascinating repunched mint marks RPMs for this year coins, where the D was stamped more than once into the die, slightly off from the first strike. Under magnification, you can see the faint outline of a second D, and that's when things start to get exciting. A normal 1957D penny in extra fine condition like yours is worth around 25 to 50 cents. Not bad for a piece of copper that's nearly 70 years old. But if yours has that RPM, especially the famous D over D North or D over D West variety, the price can skyrocket to $50, $150, even $300 depending on sharpness and color. Move into uncirculated red, brown, or bright red mint state, and collectors have paid $1,000 to $5,000 for the rarest strikes. And there's more. Some 1957D cents have been discovered with slight die cracks running through Lincoln's coat, or the wheat ear's small raised lines caused by a worn-out die. Others show die chips in the lettering or the mint mark, little blobs of metal that give the coin a unique fingerprint. These minting quirks turn ordinary pennies into fascinating collectibles. But beyond value, the 1957D is the end of an era. Just 2 years later, in 1959, the wheat reverse would be replaced by the Lincoln Memorial design, closing the book on one of America's most beloved coin series. That means your 1957D is part of the final generation of wheat pennies, the last breath of a design that began all the way back in 1909. Collectors often call this coin a modern classic. It's not ancient, but it carries deep nostalgia, a reminder of an America that was simpler, prouder, and more connected to its roots. Holding one feels like holding the heartbeat of 1952 America, a time of drive-ins, jukeboxes, and that unforgettable copper clink in your pocket. And when you realize that even these later-date wheat pennies can hide errors worth thousands, it makes you wonder just how many treasures are still waiting to be found in forgotten coffee cans and old family jars. So the next time you spot a 1957D penny, don't pass it by. Tilt it under the light. Look closely at that D mint mark. You might just be staring at a small piece of minting magic, the kind that turns ordinary copper into collector gold. Now, we step back to the mid-1950s, a time when a penny could still buy you a piece of candy, and a simple copper coin carried the story of a growing America. Let's take a closer look at your 1954 Lincoln Wheat Penny. A full brown color, beauty and fine condition, straight from an era when craftsmanship and pride defined every strike of the U.S. Mint. At first glance, this coin may look modest. Its rich brown patina tells a story of age, of hands it's passed through, of decades spent quietly surviving in pockets, drawers, and coffee cans. But beneath that gentle wear lies history, charm, and yes, a chance of incredible value. The year was 1954, and the Lincoln Wheat Penny had already become one of America's most beloved coins. The Denver, San Francisco, and Philadelphia mints all produced millions that year, but the subtle differences between them make collectors' hearts race. The 1954 plain Philadelphia carries no mint mark under the date, while the 1954D and 1954S show the tiny letter below Lincoln's chest. Now, your coin, a full brown tone in fine condition, shows years of gentle wear, but the details of Lincoln's face remain proud and recognizable. The wheat stalks on the reverse are still visible, and the color, that deep chocolate brown hue, it's the patina that collectors love, because it tells the truth of time. But what truly excites coin enthusiasts about 1954 is what could be hiding in plain sight. This is the year known for several striking minting errors, including off-center strikes, die cracks, and the ever-sought repunched mint marks RPMs. For example, the 1954SD or D over S error, where a Denver D was accidentally struck over a San Francisco S mint mark, is one of the most dramatic and valuable of all wheat penny errors. Imagine a single tiny letter holding the key to a small fortune. That variety can sell for $1,500 to $4,000 in mint state. Even worn examples, if clearly visible, can still bring hundreds. A normal 1954 in fine condition like yours? It might fetch around 15 to 25 cents, a humble but honest value for a coin that's seen the world. But if there's any error, even the faintest doubling on the date or mint mark, the price can climb fast. Coins with visible die doubling or minting quirks can leap to $150, $500, or even over $2,000 depending on condition and rarity. Uncirculated red versions, bright, fiery copper coins that look almost freshly minted can hit $10,000 or more if they display strong minting and no toning. But here's where things get emotional. Your coin, with its full brown color and age charm, might actually be more authentic to collectors who love history over perfection. It's a survivor, not pristine, but pure. Think about this. The same coin you're holding could have jingled in the pocket of a 1952 factory worker, or been given as change at a gas station when fuel was just 22 cents a gallon. That brown color? It's a badge of time, and sometimes that's worth more than shine. And while 1954 marks the last few quiet years before America entered a new decade of change, it's also the calm before the end of the wheat penny design. Within just 5 years, the famous wheat ears would disappear forever, replaced by the Lincoln Memorial. So, when you hold your 1954 Lincoln Wheat Penny, you're holding the fading warmth of the past, a coin that whispers the last stories of post-war America. And maybe, just maybe, if you look close enough under good light, you'll find one of those rare minting mistakes that transforms an old brown penny into a jaw-dropping collector's prize worth thousands. Coins like this remind us that value isn't always about shine. Sometimes it's about survival, rarity, and the stories etched into copper.